In this week's program, waterfowl biologist Mike Szymanski is going to go over the Spring Light Goose Conservation Order. We're talking season dates, regulations, and hunting ethics this spring. I'm Mike Anderson with the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Mike, explain to our viewers, what is the Spring Light Goose Conservation Order?
Sure, Mike. The conservation order for light geese has been around for, this will be our 26th opportunity we're having. We started in 1999. It's actually legally a conservation order. It's not a hunting season because it's outside of migratory bird treaty dates.
What species in the spring conservation order can hunters harvest?
Sure, we're looking for the harvest of light geese, so that's snow geese and Ross's geese. And it's really important that hunters do keep an eye out for species identification because we will have mixed flocks of white-fronted geese flying around with the light geese, as well as ducks, small Canadas, things like that.
Mike, this year's Light Goose Conservation Order opens February 17th and runs through May 12th. Why such a long duration within that season?
Sure, Mike. It is definitely on the early side for when we open. We have highly variable migration through the state, and we just want to make sure that we're open in case geese do show up. This year will probably be one of those years where we do have geese on the earlier side of migration. And
why is that, Mike?
Well, this year, folks are probably well aware that we really haven't had much for winter as compared to last year. It was a real doozy for winter and pushed migration back last year. This year we really don't have much snow. There isn't snow south of us. There really isn't much snow north of us. So migration's probably going to be quite early this year.
Migration kind of follows the snow line. They kind of stop where there's snow, is that correct?
Yeah, generally speaking, geese will push up against the snow line. It also has to do with day length and overnight temperatures, things like that. So even when we don't have snow, coming into early February, we just don't have geese yet because it's still the wrong time of year. But as you start getting through February, geese are pushing up north.
Okay, and a lot different than a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely, a lot different than a year ago. Drier conditions. The habitats that geese use will be a little bit different because there won't be as much sheet water for roosting. They're going to have to use other melt water. Conditions that hunters are going to experience are going to be very variable. Not only throughout just the day that they're hunting, but probably throughout the conservation order itself. As the pattern is holding right now, we're looking to be fairly snow-free, fairly dry, but that doesn't mean there won't be wet spots. There will still be wet spots out in fields and muddy roads that people need to be aware of. Frost will be coming out of roads, things like that. And it's not to say that we won't have some kind of spring blizzard or even a rain event that changes the conditions that are out there. If we do stay dry, folks will really need to look out for fire risks as well.
Okay, so hunters just need to be cautious.
Absolutely. People need to be very aware of the situations that they're getting into, the roads that they're trying to travel down. Any off-road travel certainly needs to have an eye of scrutiny by people in those situations. Probably not driving off-road very much in their trucks, using some other side-by-side ATV or even just walking stuff out with a sled is the best course of action. And like I said, even though it's probably going to be a dry year and some vehicles might be able to get out in fields, there are always wet spots.
Mike, let's move into licenses and regulations for the Spring Conservation Order. What type of licenses do residents and non-residents need?
Sure, so everybody needs to have a 2024 HIP registration for North Dakota to be able to hunt. Non-resident hunters need to have their 2024 Spring Light Goose non-resident license. Residents can hunt using a valid license from either last year, which expires March 31st, or the new one for 2024 coming April 1st. And that's the small game license and the general game and habitat stamp, or a sportsman's license.
Okay. Regulations are a little different in the spring conservation order than the fall season. Explain those.
Sure. The conservation order allows us some other measures that are not allowed during regular hunting seasons. In North Dakota, there's 5 main differences. You do not need a federal duck stamp. There's no possession or daily bag limits for light geese. And you can use unplugged shotguns, electronic calls, and hunting up to half an hour after sunset. And during the conservation order, the use of electronic calls is the main difference. We don't have any other species that are open for harvest, so we can use those electronic calls, and they're really beneficial for harvest during the conservation order.
And hunters also need to be aware and be cautious of swans and other species of geese flying with these light geese.
That's right. We've got other waterfowl migrating through. Flocks are very mixed at times. There are swans migrating through, and later in the spring we also have whooping cranes migrating through.
Where in North Dakota is the biggest migration?
In North Dakota, wet year, dry year, it kind of doesn't matter. Primarily geese are going to be coming up through the 281 corridor in the James River lowlands, and then as they hit about I-94, spreading out across the state, angling more to the northwest, and some geese do head straight north as well.
And quite the sight.
It is quite the sight, and that's one of the great things about the opportunity. It's not just, the ability to use some different measures to harvest geese and have that extra hunting opportunity, extend your season a little bit, your hunting opportunities throughout the year. But just being out there and seeing the wonders of spring migration, it's truly a spectacle to have some of these migration days go through where you're watching geese nonstop for hours at a time.
Mike, hunters just need to use common sense with these changing weather conditions this spring.
Yeah, like I mentioned, it is a daily thing where you need to look at changes, and also throughout the day. You could have instances where in the morning everything's frozen pretty hard and you can get around really well, but things might thaw out during the day and soften up a fair bit. So folks really need to have an eye on situations that they're getting into.
A lot of great information. Thank you, Mike.
You bet.